"Why do I smell so bad when I'm not with my husband?" Princess Zanzi asks in confusion. Welcome to Treeside-Tales, a home of beautiful African stories. Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful young lady named Princess Zanzi. She was the only daughter of a renowned king. She was not an ordinary princess. She was a strong young lady. Princess Zanzi was the kind of beauty that turned heads and silenced rooms. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany, and her eyes were a deep, mesmerizing brown that seemed to hold hidden stories. Her laughter was warm and contagious, lighting up any gathering and drawing people to her. Her graceful movements, kindness and charm made her the jewel of their village. Many suitors had come forward over the years, offering wealth and gifts in hopes of winning her heart. But Zanzi was not easily impressed by riches or words alone. She had a spirit that valued loyalty, sincerity, and strength of character. In that same village there lived a man named Tanko, who was in his 30s. He was an orphan who was very hard-working and nice. He had been one of those admirers, though he approached her differently. Unlike other men who flaunted their wealth, he focused on gaining her trust and making her laugh. Tanko was no less handsome himself, tall and broad-shouldered with a quiet intensity that intrigued Princess Zanzi. He would find subtle ways to show his care, whether by bringing her freshly picked fruits or stepping in to help her family with small tasks. Over time, Zanzi grew fond of him, charmed by his kindness and steady nature. When he finally asked her to marry him, she agreed, believing in his quiet but unwavering devotion. Their wedding was a grand celebration, attended by friends, family, and nearly everyone in the village. Zanzi was radiant, dressed in the finest traditional attire, her beauty amplified by joy. Tanko was proud to call her his own, knowing that no other man could have her. After the wedding, the king gave them a palace as their wedding gift. He didn't want his only daughter to lack anything, since Tanko was not too rich. They lived in their own palace with everything want. She was living like a princess, and her husband Tanko like a king. She loved going to the village stream to relax in the evenings. However, beneath his pride was a lingering insecurity. He knew how much attention Zanzi attracted and felt a creeping fear that one day, another man might try to steal her heart. This insecurity only grew as time went on. Tanko became increasingly possessive, obsessing over ways to ensure that Zanzi remained devoted only to him. He convinced himself that his actions were justified because he truly loved her and couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Thus, in a moment of weakness and desperation, he decided to bind her with a charm, one that would make her undesirable to anyone else whenever she was out of his sight. He told himself it was a small price to pay for their happiness, never realizing how deeply it would affect both of their lives. If you are still watching, please like, comment, and subscribe to help our channel grow. Thank you as you do so. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her to anyone else. Despite her loyalty, Tanko's insecurities grew with each passing day. He feared that her beauty and grace would inevitably attract other men. In a moment of desperation, he sought out a solution, an ancient charm that would keep her close to him. Little did Zanzi know, Tanko planned to cast a spell on her that would bind her to him in a peculiar way. Late one night, Tanko visited a secluded herbalist who was rumored to have powerful charms. The herbalist, an old man with a knowing smile, listened carefully as Tanko explained his desire. Every time she is away from you, she will emit a scent so unpleasant that no one would dare approach her, the herbalist promised, handing Tanko a small vial filled with a strange liquid. Tanko's heart raced with excitement and guilt as he accepted the vial, feeling both comforted and uneasy. The next day, Tanko convinced Zanzi to drink a special elixir he had prepared, telling her it would strengthen their bond. Zanzi, trusting her husband implicitly, drank it without hesitation. For the first few days, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She went about her usual routine, spending time with friends and family, all while blissfully unaware of the effects taking root within her. However, everything changed when Zanzi took a short trip to visit her family in a neighboring village. As soon as she was out of sight from Tanko, a strange odor began to surround her. The scent was so strong that even her family found it unbearable to stay close. Zanzi was baffled and embarrassed, wondering what could possibly be causing the stench. She tried washing, scrubbing, and even applying perfume, but nothing seemed to help. As time passed, Zanzi began to notice the pattern. Whenever she was close to Tanko, the foul smell would mysteriously vanish, leaving her as sweet-smelling as ever. But as soon as they were separated, the stench would return. Tanko pretended to be concerned, offering sympathetic words and insisting he would help her find a solution. Meanwhile, he secretly reveled in the effectiveness of the spell, feeling secure in the knowledge that no man would come near her. Zanzi's friends grew distant, unwilling to be around her due to the mysterious odor. She tried to seek medical help, but every remedy she attempted failed. Tanko was always there, however, assuring her that he would stand by her no matter what. She was touched by his loyalty, unaware of the truth behind her condition. The odor that clung to Zanzi when she was away from Tanko was no ordinary smell. It was a sour, repulsive stench that could clear a room within seconds. The scent was so intense that it felt as though it soaked into her skin, radiating out in waves that seemed to linger no matter where she went. The first time it struck in public was during a market visit. Zanzi was excited to buy some groceries to try new recipes for her dear husband Tanko. But as she approached the merchant's stall, she saw his nose wrinkle and his eyes water. Without a word, he stepped back, covering his nose. Soon others around her began to react as well, some muttering in disgust, others simply walking away. Mortified, Zanzi left the market in tears. She couldn't understand why everyone was reacting so strongly to her presence, and no amount of scrubbing, perfumes, or powders seemed to help. The realization that this wasn't a fleeting problem began to haunt her, and she found herself avoiding social gatherings altogether. She stopped visiting friends and even avoided her family, fearing the embarrassment of seeing them cringe and turn away. One day, she visited the village stream like she always did, but this time the villagers covered their nose as soon as she approached the stream. She was embarrassed. An old woman approached her and told her that she smells like a dead meat. Zanzi was speechless, but the woman told her to go and look for a solution before the villagers will leave the village for her. She went home crying. One of the worst incidents came during her cousin's wedding. Despite her fears, Zanzi wanted to attend the ceremony and support her family. She took extra care with her appearance that day, using every scent she owned to mask the smell. But as the ceremony began, the scent returned with full force, filling the air around her. Those seated nearby started whispering, covering their noses and inching their chairs further away. The bride's mother approached her in the middle of the ceremony, gently but firmly requesting she sit at the very back. Her voice was kind, but strained, clearly uncomfortable addressing the issue. Humiliated, Zanzi nodded and moved to the far end of the venue, feeling every eye on her. For the rest of the event, she kept to herself, praying that the nightmare would somehow end. The stench affected Zanzi's life in every imaginable way. Neighbors would wave to her from a distance, but avoided coming too close. Children in the village nicknamed her the smelling rich princess, running away whenever she appeared. She no longer visited the market and stopped attending social events altogether. Zanzi found herself isolated, her confidence shattered as she became a reluctant recluse in her own home. Over time, the smell began to affect even her mental health. She grew paranoid, feeling that even when she was near Tanko, traces of the odor lingered. Although he remained outwardly supportive, the growing distance between them was undeniable. Every incident drove her closer to suspicion, eventually leading her to confront the truth and realize that the unbearable stench was a spell, a binding that chained her in both shame and isolation. As weeks turned into months, Zanzi became increasingly troubled by the strange curse that seemed to cling to her whenever she was away from Tanko. She noticed how the terrible stench appeared to come and go, vanishing the moment she was near her husband, and reappearing whenever she was out of his sight. At first, she tried to ignore the unsettling coincidence, telling herself it was just a cruel twist of fate. But each time she ventured out, only to be met with wrinkled noses and disgusted glances, her suspicion grew. One day, while preparing to visit her cousin, she noticed Tanko watching her with an odd, almost smug expression. She asked him if he was worried about her going out, hoping he might voice some hidden concern. But he simply smiled and reassured her, "You'll be fine, my love. No one will ever take you from me." His words, though meant to be loving, carried a strange finality that left her unsettled. Later, as she walked away from their home and felt the familiar foul smell envelop her, the memory of his words lingered in her mind. Could it be that Tanko knew more about her condition than he had let on? Determined to get to the bottom of her condition, Princess Zanzi began to piece together every unusual detail she could recall. She thought back to the elixir Tanko had given her months ago, claiming it was for their eternal bond. She remembered how, after drinking it, the smell had started shortly afterward. She also recalled how each time she tried to discuss her affliction, Tanko would dismiss her worries or change the subject. If you are still watching, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to help our channel grow. Thank you as you do so. After months of isolation, Zanzi began to suspect something unusual. She couldn't understand why the smell only appeared when she was away from Tanko. Her instincts told her something was wrong, and she began to question the mysterious elixir he had given her months ago. She confronted Ease, hoping he might have some answers, but he quickly brushed off her concerns, claiming it was all a coincidence. However, doubt lingered in her mind. In quiet moments, Zanzi would observe her husband closely. She noticed a slight tension in his demeanor whenever she mentioned the stench, as if he was hiding something. One evening, while Tanko was away, she found herself looking over his belongings, searching for anything that might confirm her suspicions. Her fears were validated when she stumbled upon a small vial, similar to the one he'd given her months ago. Confronted with the undeniable clues, she felt a mixture of shock and betrayal settle over her. Zanzi finally understood the truth, that the man she loved had bound her with a spell meant to isolate her, keeping her from others through a curse she could neither control nor escape. After discovering the vial, Zanzi was devastated, her heart heavy with betrayal and anger. Determined to rid herself of the curse, she decided to confide in her friend Ojoto, an elderly woman in the village known for her knowledge of ancient herbs and charms. When Zanzi explained her plight, Ojoto listened carefully, her face growing somber. She revealed that such spells, designed to control and isolate, were rare but powerful, and breaking them would not be easy. Under Ojoto's guidance, Zanzi embarked on a ritual to cleanse herself of the foul charm. For 3 days, she followed Ojoto's instructions meticulously, drinking bitter herbal teas, bathing in sacred river water, and wearing a protective amulet to shield her from the curse's grip. On the final night, they performed a cleansing ceremony by a small fire, chanting ancient words meant to break bonds of control and lift curses cast in secrecy. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs, as Ojoto warned Zanzi that breaking the spell would require one last test. She would have to confront Tanko and reject the hold he had placed on her. The next morning, Zanzi returned home to face Tanko. Summoning her courage, she told him everything she had learned. She described the agony, the shame, and the isolation the spell had forced upon her. Her voice was steady, but her words cut deep as she confronted him about his betrayal. Tanko tried to explain himself, claiming his actions were out of love, that he feared losing her. But Zanzi saw through his excuses. "If you truly loved me, you would not have bound me with such a curse," she replied firmly. "Love does not control. It sets free." As she spoke, something shifted within her, a warmth spreading from her heart, radiating outward until she felt a sense of release. The spell's grip loosened, the invisible chains shattering with each word. She felt lighter, the oppressive stench dissipating like mist, burned away by the morning sun. Tanko watched, his face contorted with a mixture of regret and helplessness, as the curse he had placed upon her finally unraveled. Free from its hold, Zanzi took a deep breath, feeling clean and liberated for the first time in months. The bond between them had been broken, but she had reclaimed her freedom, determined never to let herself be bound again. After breaking the curse, Zanzi knew she couldn't remain in the same life with Tanko. The man she had loved and trusted had betrayed her in the deepest way, binding her with a curse meant to trap her and tarnish her spirit. Though her heart still held remnants of love for him, she understood that trust, once shattered, could not easily be mended. The freedom she had reclaimed was too precious to sacrifice for a love built on control and fear. One evening, as dusk settled over the village, Zanzi confronted Tanko in their home. She spoke with a calm resolve that masked the pain beneath. "Tanko, I once believed that you would stand by me, love me, and protect me. But you chose to bind me, to poison my life with shame and isolation. Love that controls is not love. It's captivity, and I cannot live with someone who would imprison me for their own fears." Tanko listened in silence, his face a mixture of regret and sorrow. But he knew her words were final. She packed her belongings that night, gathering her few cherished possessions with a heavy but steady heart. Tanko tried to plead with her, begging for a second chance, promising he would change, but Zanzi had made up her mind. "I forgive you, Tanko," she whispered, looking back one last time. "But forgiveness is not a reason to stay. I need to find my own path, unbound and free." With those final words, she left their home, feeling a bittersweet sense of liberation. As she stepped out into the night, she looked ahead, knowing that her life would be her own once more, her spirit free to soar without the weight of Ease's fear holding her back. The night Zanzi left, Tanko was plunged into a chasm of regret and despair that he hadn't anticipated. Her final words echoed in his mind, piercing him with a deep, inescapable sense of loss. He wandered through their empty home, each room holding a memory of their love, now tainted by his actions. Every corner reminded him of her laughter, her warmth, her presence, and now each memory haunted him with a reminder of what he had destroyed. In his obsession to keep her close, he had driven her away. His love turned into a prison she could no longer bear. Tanko's regret grew more profound as days turned into weeks. Friends and neighbors noticed his change. He became withdrawn and distant, his once proud demeanor replaced by a heavy sadness. He would sit alone, staring at the vial that had caused all this suffering, hating himself for ever believing it could secure Zanzi love. His nights became sleepless, tormented by thoughts of what could have been if he had trusted her heart and allowed her the freedom to love him on her own terms. Tanko tried everything he could to win her back, sending messages through mutual friends, writing letters of apology, and even attempting to see her from afar. but Zanzi was resolute, her spirit having endured too much to be swayed by his remorse. She had reclaimed her independence, and Tanko's pleas only served as painful reminders of the control he had once wielded over her. He began to realize that his regret would be a constant companion, a reminder of the beauty he had lost through his own foolish actions. In the quiet of his solitude, Tanko was left to confront the emptiness he had created. The life he had shared with Zanzi now felt hollow, and he understood that, no matter how deep his remorse, he could never undo the pain he had caused. Tanko's heart was broken, not just by Zanzi's departure, but by the revelation that his own insecurities had destroyed the purest love he had ever known. Moral lessons. The story highlights that forgiveness is not synonymous with reconciliation. Zanzi's ability to forgive Tanko was crucial for her healing, but it did not mean they were meant to stay together. Recognizing when a relationship has become harmful is essential for personal growth and well-being. Zanzi's journey emphasizes the importance of self-discovery and reclaiming one's identity. By breaking free from the control of her husband, she was able to rediscover her strength, independence, and self-worth. Love in its truest form should be a source of strength, support, and mutual respect, allowing both partners to flourish together. Thank you for watching. See you in our next story, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.